Good evening.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay, this is the shortest glitch we've ever had. It's 6:01 and we're starting again. So we're getting better. In any event, we're called back now from the closed session. We rose from that at 5:30, and during the closed section, council provided staff with direction with regard to a potential land sale matter. So I'm now calling the meeting back to order, and I invite you, members of the public, to participate in this meeting by accessing the information which is live streamed on our Middlesex Centre YouTube channel. Just before I get to the regular agenda and ask about the additions to the agenda and so forth, I do want to make two little comments. The first is that on September 30th in Canada, that date will be recognizing the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. And it's also known as Orange Shirt Day, and it's going to provide Canadians with a chance to honor our First Nations, Inuit and Métis peoples and survivors of residential schools and their families and their communities. And this is an opportunity for all of us to reflect and to think about what has happened in the past. And the day is a statutory holiday, so the municipal office will be closed. And while some offices across the country will not be closing, ours will, and council recognizes the importance of this day with respect to our neighbors to the south in our community. We have a report on our council meeting tonight. We're just going to speak to this a little bit more on the consent agenda. So I'll leave my comments at that for now. And I do want to make one other announcement, namely on, well, recently the Western Fair Association sent a request to Middlesex County Council to appoint a member of the council as a representative to the Board of Governors for the 2021-22 year. And they needed an answer no later than the 6th of October. And we actually had a decision at our meeting of council on September 14th at County. And I'm very pleased to say that Councillor Brennan, our deputy mayor here, was recommended to take the position, and he was appointed to the Board of Governors. So given the association's commitment to agricultural things and their mandate with respect to agriculture and the experiences and skill sets that our deputy mayor brings, I think this is going to be a great benefit to both parties. And I wish our deputy mayor the best and congratulate him on his appointment. You're welcome. Okay, so now I can get into the regular agenda. There are no additions to the agenda for this evening, so I'll ask if there are any disclosures of pecuniary interest. Seeing none, then we can move to the first item, which is delegations, presentations, petitions, and we have Greg Wilcox from the Sinclair Regional Conservation Authority here to present tonight. Okay, I understand he is on the line. We'll just wait for him to come up.
Hello. Good evening.
Hello. Good evening, Mr. Wilcox. Thank you for joining us tonight. The floor is yours if you'd like to start your presentation.
Okay, I'll just try to share my screen here. Can you see the presentation?
Yes, we can.
Very good. Okay, so I'm Greg Wilcox. I'm the manager of conservation areas for Sinclair Region Conservation Authority. With you tonight to discuss Some funding we've received, an opportunity through our WECI program to do some dam decommissioning studies. So we're looking at the Coldstream Dam as well as the Head Street Dam in Strathroy. Quickly, I'll try to keep this really brief. The WECI program is the Water and Erosion Control Infrastructure Program. It's a cost share arrangement between the province and the municipalities that funds repairs to Conservation Authority infrastructure. Proposals are submitted by the conservation authorities. Sinclair submitted a proposal for dam decommissioning studies of these two dams quite a few years ago, and it's just a recurring application. And we were notified this summer that funding was awarded. And then we've also gone to our foundation and requested that they contribute, and they've committed to some funds as well towards this this study. And just, this is not like our normal levy system. This is something that we do on behalf of our partners. And if there's no interest from Middlesex Centre, we would just move forward with the Strathroy study. But I'll quickly go over, what the scope of the study would be and some of the history. So we've proposed a $40,000 study, and our foundation has committed to $10,000, and there'd be $20,000 from the province, which would leave $10,000 required from the municipality, and that would be in 2022 funding. So the scope of the study would be to look at the condition of the existing dam, take a look at the estimated long-term expenses to maintain that structure, look at any safety concerns that are present, look at flood and erosion concerns that could arise from dam removal if there are any other community impacts, and develop some alternative concepts to having a dam in that location with some preliminary estimated costs associated with those alternatives, and do an investigation with DFO into what the approvals would be that would be required if we were to pursue dam removal at some time in the future. The history of the Coldstream Dam, for those who aren't aware, it was once the site of a grist mill, sawmill, dam, and pond. The original mill was constructed in 1842. It operated until 1948 when it was closed. The structure that was present at that time collapsed in 1953 during a storm, and the authority built the current dam structure in 1972. The intended use of that and the Strathroy Dam were mainly focused on recreation, as well as a few other intended uses like emergency water supply and raising the water table and improved stream flow, which at this stage we would argue that it maybe doesn't do that. And then another part of the history in the EnviroFriends group that spent many years managing that property had a consultant in 1996 develop a naturalization study, which also included an alternative to the dam, a recommendation to remove the dam. So that's just a quick photo of the original dam when it was an operating mill. That is shortly after construction. So that's the beach, the dam, and the downstream end of the reservoir. This is a picture we had of just the beach back when swimming was a possibility there, and it was a very busy site, and the beach was quite popular locally. But the Coldstream Reservoir today, so some of the issues, recreational value is somewhat reduced. Bacteria levels haven't permitted swimming, I don't think, since the 80s. Reservoir has experienced a lot of infilling, so sediment deposits. There's been issues with nuisance algae growth in the warmer months, and when that algae dies off, there's been complaints of the odor that causes. Poor aesthetics at time with algae growth and vegetation. In the past, vegetation has been so abundant that there was requirements to go in and actually cut it out at an expense to keep that under control. But the reservoir still does provide some paddling opportunity, fishing opportunity. It was very well used this past winter for skating with arenas being closed. And there's some wildlife viewing opportunities there. And it has some cultural and historical value. Quickly, the Sydenham River, which is what runs through the Coldstream Conservation Area. The dam is on the east branch of the Sydenham River. The east branch is 165 kilometers long, starts the headwaters near Ilderton and outlets down at Wallaceburg. It supports an amazing diversity of aquatic life. It has the greatest diversity of freshwater mussels of any watershed in Canada. Routinely, DFO holds their annual training to train folks on identifying mussels. That's all held in the Sydenham every year. There's at least 34 species of mussels, 84 species of fish, with a considerable number of at-risk mussels, fish, and turtles. Some real quick environmental impacts of barriers and reservoirs. So fish passage is impacted as fish can't move from migration or through their migration areas for spawning to nursery habitats to feeding areas. And that also impacts mussel migration, as fish are the hosts for young mussels and help distribute that mussel population. We have significant alteration to thermal regime. We've studied for multiple years the temperature that as the water goes into the reservoir and as it comes out at the other end. And on average in the summer months, it's a 3-degree temperature increase. It has considerable alteration to sediment transport. It deprives downstream areas of certain sediments, sandy sediments, which are very important to some of those species at risk. We have increased algal growth with the warm, shallow water, and oxygen depletion is a problem with warmer temperatures and as those algae die off. So generally, the reservoir is causing negative impacts to water quality. So really, if there's interest in pursuing this, I know from an environmental perspective, we're starting to look at all these structures and trying to determine if the recreational value still justifies the negative environmental impacts. So this would be a dam study to look at those impacts and look at potential alternatives and look at the current condition and make sure we're aware of any upcoming costs of the dam. If we were to move forward and complete this study and from it felt there was a viable alternative to the dam, then the next step would be a Class EA, an environmental assessment to engage our stakeholders and the public and get feedback on whether or not dam removal or some sort of alternative modification to the dam would be acceptable to the municipality and the community. And that would then determine the future of the dam and the reservoir. So again, this is not a levy. This is an opportunity through funding to go ahead and get a study done ahead of the game so that we are maybe in a position to take advantage of grants if the decision was to remove the dam, versus maybe having something come up in the future where the dam fails and we've got to make, expensive repairs or start this process when the dams maybe already has some issues. So I just did a real quick presentation. That's what I've got, and then I'm available for any questions.
Thank you for that presentation. There is a lot of content in there. I am sure there are going to be questions from council. Who wants to kick it off? I'll start with Councillor Heffernan.
Through the mayor to Mr. Wilcox. So the original purpose of the dam, was that basically for recreation over the years? Like it hasn't been there that long. Okay, so it was recreation?
That's correct. The original dam that the authority built was for recreation purposes in both Coldstream and Strathroy. Obviously, the mill from the 1800s through the mid 1900s was for other reasons, but we rebuilt as a recreational opportunity.
So what would be the impact if the dam were to come out? There used to be a pond there or a deep spring, because kids used to jump in there, swing over the dam and jump in this pond. But I'm thinking, like, what about the walkway, the boardwalk? Would that be like if the dam was decommissioned? What exactly would happen to that area?
So that's part of the study, is to determine the impacts of a dam removal. So looking at, will that impact flood and erosion? Our first thought from the way that dam is built is that it's not actively performing much flood control. So I would expect minimal impacts downstream to flooding. But again, that's something that the consultant would be tasked with determining. And again, with alternatives, we've done these not recently, but in the past, these studies. And when you come up with alternatives and have public consultation, that's the sort of thing that can be considered also. Like, people actively fish in this location. How can we maintain an area for fishing, or maintain, reconnect the river, but maybe keep an offline pond for wildlife or for paddling? So that's the details that, the concepts kind of work through. But as far as, will the boardwalk in that area be affected? I think there was, that area it floods now on occasion, and it would continue to flood on occasion. But the study would have to determine if it would increase flooding in that location.
I know it's heavily used recreationally for walking and stuff. So
Yeah,
thank you for your comments.
we actually tore the boardwalk, half of it out last weekend. So it's in the process of being rebuilt.
Okay, other questions? Councillor Cates?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Greg. Sorry. I have to say that I don't think I've ever been back there. I am curious, in your picture where you show the beach on a busy day in the 70s, mostly because it's an aerial view. Where is the dam? I see a picture of a beach. Where is the dam on the picture?
So it's hard to tell in that picture. It's just, I guess, if you pretended that picture was oriented with north up, it would be just south of the beach area. It's because in that picture, it's all just riprap stone. It's a big sloped area of armor stone. Yeah, so that where the reservoir, you can see there's a big open water area, and then it kind of chokes down to a small pond below.
Okay.
That's the dam.
Thank you.
And then Councillor Shipley.
Through your Madam Mayor to Mr. Wilcox. I've lived around here quite a while, and personally, I thought it was a better conservation area before the dam than after. So my personal opinion is, yeah, get rid of it and put it back to the way it was. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. To Mr. Wilcox, if it was to be decommissioned and removed, who would be responsible for the cost? And do you have an idea what it would cost?
At this point, we don't. It'll vary drastically depending on the alternatives. So, cheapest is some sort of just removal and let it naturalize itself. Most expensive is really defining where the channel's going to be with shoreline engineering, developing offline ponds, and it can be in the millions. It can be hundreds of a few $100,000 to remove a dam and let it naturalize. And there is grant fund. It's hard to find funding for the study. It's very hard to find funding for like a class environmental assessment. There is, not that it's easy, but there is more funding available when it comes to the actual removal or alteration of the dam for environmental benefit. So we would be sourcing grant funds. It would be unlikely that it wouldn't have some cost associated with it for the municipality as the the funder of maintenance of the property. But we would, again, if we went that route, we would be doing our best to source as much grant funding as possible.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you for the presentation, Mr. Wilcox. I'm wondering for council, what about a direction for staff? Is this something we want to maybe direct staff to take a look at? We are in the middle of budgeting processes right now. It would be a good time maybe to task the committee with deciding whether or not, or how much, or what. Do you have a timeline for a decision, or what's your time frame here for an answer?
So what happens is they supplied the funding for this year, which goes, their fiscal goes into 2020, end of March 2022 from the province. So we would be thinking instead of your 2022 funding would match their 2021. We would want to get this process started. We're working on RFPs for the Strathroy now, and would ideally, it would be nice to know sometime in October, because we need to get some sort of draft report by the end of March.
Okay, thanks for the clarification. So, yeah, so I'm not sure our budget will be done, but I think staff can probably make some recommendations to us on that. Is there someone who would make a motion to direct staff to come back with a report on this to council? Councillor, Deputy Mayor Brennan and Councillor Cates. Anyone opposed? It's all in favor then. Okay, all right. So House, we'll get back to you.
Very good.
Okay, we appreciate your time tonight.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yep, a lot of moving pieces here, so I think we'll have to think about it a bit and make sure we come back with a good answer. Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Good night. Okay, moving on to our next presentation. The United Way of Elgin Middlesex is going to present the 2021 update for us tonight. Kelly Ziegler, President and CEO, is going to be joining us, as is Heather Jackson. And
Heather on the screen.
Heather's on the screen.
Hello, is Kelly by chance?
I understand she's just coming on, so I don't
Okay.
think she's left you alone tonight.
Okay. I know she wouldn't do that.
No.
Here she is.
Okay, I gather that there are two of you now.
There we are. Perfect.
Okay, well, the floor is yours. If you'd like to start your slide presentation, we're ready for you now.
Terrific. Well, thank you, Mayor and Council, for having us join you here this evening. My name is Kelly Ziegler, and I'm joined by Heather Jackson, a colleague of mine at United Way Elgin Middlesex. Heather is going to drive the PowerPoint on my behalf, so she'll be sharing her screen. And we're just going to walk you through a brief update of what United Way has been up to in recent years. This is following on a presentation that we gave to Middlesex County Council recently, and we're invited to speak to Middlesex Centre just to give a similar update so that you can understand who we are, what we're up to. Most of you are quite familiar with United Way, having been long-term supporters of our work and of the agencies that we support in the county. Just by way of a little bit of background about us. So our local United Way has been in existence about 100 years. We are a local autonomous nonprofit. So we are connected to United Way Centraide Canada through a federated model, which means we still have our own local autonomy. We have representatives on our board of directors from our local region, and all of our decisions are made local and stayed local. So that local value proposition is really important to us. We have a few board members from Middlesex County who aid us in all of our work and our decision-making process. Next slide, Heather. Great. So, our mission and vision and values, we're about giving people a fair shot at a good life, no matter what their circumstance or where they live. And we do this through, advocacy, through community convening and collaboration, and then those hallmark community investments that you would be probably most familiar with in the work that we do. So it is time right now where we're gearing up and launching our United Way campaign this week through the 3M Harvest Lunch. So if you had ever been familiar with our event before, we had 2,000 to 3,000 people gathering at Budweiser Gardens in London to launch the campaign, and smaller events throughout the county. Of course, we can't gather. So last year we started a program where people would still buy their tickets for the lunch, but instead they were purchasing tickets for someone in need, where we would deliver a lunch through our community funded agencies out in the region. And pleased to report, we sold our most amount of tickets ever last year, and we're on track to repeat that success this year. So this week, we have a team of staff and volunteers who are out all over London, St. Thomas, Elgin, and Middlesex counties, delivering meals at United Way funded agencies so that folks in need have the opportunity to get a meal thanks to their friends and neighbors who are looking out for them. Another bit of news about United Way that you may have heard recently is we have changed our funding model, meaning the way that we invest funds back out into our community. So this work began a few years ago. We started looking at the ways in which we were making investments and really wanted to be able to be more responsive to emerging needs that are being felt in local communities. And then came the pandemic, and it became abundantly clear, as we're all familiar, that folks that were the most marginalized have been impacted the most by the ravages of the pandemic, as well as a deepening understanding of equity issues and Indigenous relations issues that are impacting members of our local communities. And so we revised our funding model, and for the first time in, I would say, decades, we are doing an open and competitive call for applications from nonprofits in our region, including Middlesex County. So the deadline for grant applications is October 1st, and I would encourage you to share that information with nonprofits or organizations that might be interested or fit the criteria for United Way funding. And all of that information can be found on our website, and our staff are ready and willing to answer questions and help people through that process. So I would encourage you to share that information if you know of any great organizations doing work to help people living in poverty or dealing with social issues in your local community. Next slide, Heather. Again, just to reiterate the sort of our key value proposition which is everything raised local stays local. So while we do have a national office, it really acts as that convening partner that sort of ensures that all United Ways are fulfilling their requirements and sort of like an accreditation body. But really all of that fundraising that happens through our United Way campaign does stay local in our local community. Next slide, Heather. So we are engaged in a lot of community leadership in addition to those fundraising and community investment work that we do. So this is maybe work that's less familiar to people, where we are sitting at all of these different planning tables. The ones highlighted in red are ones that have a significant Middlesex footprint. To really ensure that when we're making decisions about funding, that we're doing so with the most recent information that's available in local communities and through a collaborative model. So we often also will work with local funders to make sure that we're identifying gaps. We're not sort of double dipping and each two organizations funding the same project. So we do a lot of coordination at a local level through many of these local planning tables. Next slide, Heather. So our pandemic year, almost 18 months ago now, as our local region shut down because of the pandemic, we were quite frankly, quite scared about what would happen to local communities, what would happen to our viability as a United Way, and our ability to raise and invest funds in our region. What's happened was quite extraordinary. Yes, there were numbers of businesses that were deeply impacted by the pandemic, and so we did see some unemployment, we did see layoffs, but what the flip side of that was, we saw a number of organizations, corporate partners, everyday donors who if they did have the ability to give, they still gave, and they gave more, which meant that last year we invested the most amount of money ever in our local region through our United Way. And we did that through our traditional community fund. So that's the funds raised, funds spent in the community through local agencies. And then we had a local COVID fund where donors gave individual and corporate gifts specific to pandemic related programming. And then we did partner with the federal government on the delivery of two funding streams, the Emergency Community Support Fund and the Seniors Fund. So all told, about $9.5 million was invested across the region through 32 different organizations. So we were pretty impressed at how our community responded, and that we were able to help agencies respond to the needs that they were seeing, which were quite significant. So some of the needs we would be seeing, particularly in smaller rural communities, probably of no surprise to you, would be those issues related to social isolation, people not having the ability to get access to food or supplies because they lacked transportation, as well as concern about income and employment. So that's where a lot of that money went, and agencies responded by leveraging the support of volunteers to ensure that those volunteer driver type programs continued, that we were able to help agencies deliver virtual services, much like you are right now with a hybrid meeting. Things like online virtual counseling became really critical. And in fact, those are the things that are the innovations that have come out of the pandemic that we hope will continue, because it does help close the gap, particularly when you get out into the further regions of the county where people have more difficult time accessing community funded programs and services. Next slide, Heather. So in this context, locally in Middlesex County specifically, we invested $247,000 in programs and services offered in Middlesex County by charities physically located in Middlesex. This funding includes our regular United Way funding, and then as well these specific COVID-related funds. This is, in addition to that, there would be, of course, a number of London-based agencies, which a number of county residents access every year as well. So we have those agencies that are physically located in the county, and then ones like the John Howard Society, for example, physically located in London, but have staff that are working with clients out in the region. Next slide, Heather. Next slide just gives an example and a listing of what some of the agencies would be. I think that have received funding through these programs, the funding streams that we've had. So you can see there's a wide range of programs and services that serve, individuals, families, seniors, kids, those facing social isolation and poverty as well. Next slide. And then finally, just a few comments on advocacy. So our local United Way has become much more involved in advocacy and public policy work in recent years. This is where we can be a really great ally to municipalities and councils. As you know, we're often advocating for the same thing that you are as it relates to affordable housing, policies to increase social assistance rates, all of those things we are advocating for as well. We have partnered with London City Council, St. Thomas City Council on different advocacy efforts and lending our voice to calls to higher levels of government for funding for those social service related needs. So certainly consider us as a partner in advocacy if that makes sense. for your county council, because we do believe that that is the way to truly move the needle for our communities. You know, the fundraising and the investing through local agencies, critically important, provides sort of the short-term relief to individuals and families who are in crisis. But we know we need long-term policy change to be able to impact things for the long term. And with that, that is the end of our presentation. Certainly happy to answer any questions.
Well, thank you, Kelly. That was most informative. I'll look to council now to see if there are any questions or comments. I don't see any hands. I just want to make a quick comment then. I'm always heartened to hear when you're presenting that the responses that you've had from the communities, from the people that you were relying on, that didn't stop during the pandemic. And it was, I say, it's really heartening to hear that as well, that you, like everyone else, worked really hard to innovate and change things. And some of that isn't going to go away because it's probably a great way to reach people in rural areas more virtually, perhaps, than always trying to find exactly where they are geographically or making them drive somewhere. And so that the reach part is really important, I think, to people in rural populations. So I just want to thank you for all the work that you are doing. And I wish you continued success in moving things forward. I think you've got a big agenda in front of you and you're looking forward. And I think we'll all benefit from that. So thank you very much for your time tonight. And we'll look forward to seeing you again.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah. Good night.
Night.
Okay, and now we'll move to item 5.3, which is the COVID-19 pandemic briefing. And our CAO, Michael DeLillo, is going to present that for us.
Great. Thank you, Mayor David, to members of council and to our residents and those watching tonight. I thought it'd be important to give council just a very quick brief update in response to the pandemic and some of the new regulations that take effect. And it'd be important to highlight some of this. So on your agenda, you'll see a brief PowerPoint that I've done. The topics of slide number 2 speaks to just some of the quick updates that I'll touch upon in a little bit more detail. In particular, just to focus on the new regulation, provincial regulation that comes into effect as of today. And also the Section 22 order that the Chief Medical Officer of Health has issued for tomorrow, that takes effect tomorrow. And I'll just quickly go over some of the operations and preparedness that we've been doing as a municipality since the onset. But moving to the next slide, since the outbreak began, we declared an emergency back over a year and a half ago now. So it's been quite some time. The emergency control group, consisting of senior staff, the mayor and deputy mayor, have been meeting ever since 2020. The frequency has changed as there's been ebbs and flows from the pandemic, but we do continue to meet. We have stakeholders external that have joined the group to ensure that we're receiving the right information and the right data to make the decisions for the ongoing of our municipal operations. And so we have individuals like the health unit, the police, and our county stakeholders that do come on from time to time, where we make decisions for the best interests of our municipality. All of the information is posted on our website, and the URL or the link is posted there. And I encourage residents to look at that. And the website is frequently updated with all the different changes and regulations and orders that take effect. And so we've done our utmost to make sure that the data is current and relevant. Just to follow up, staff and council have also been briefed since the onset as much as possible. And we've tried to do communications on a frequent, ongoing basis to make sure that our staff and council are also updated on information and on decisions that are taking place in regards to and in response to the pandemic. Moving to the next slide, the first change that took effect today was Ontario Regulation 364-20. And this is part of step 3 of the roadmap to exit the pandemic. And it takes effect today. And I think it's timely for this brief presentation because this regulation is in response to patrons that are seeking access to certain facilities, namely being, as it applies to the municipality, our community centers and our recreation centers. And so the provincial regulation is that patrons now must show proof of identification and proof of being fully vaccinated upon entry into the facilities. And so we put processes and guidelines in place to accommodate this new regulation. And so for those watching, what I ask is that there be patience and understanding at this point and cooperation, because there may be some lineups as we continue to work our way through these new changes, but we're going to do the utmost and best to accommodate patrons entering into our facilities. There are some exemptions that are in place, and the regulation notes this, where those that want to enter into other particular areas of the facility, because we recognize that our wellness center contains other amenities such as the YMCA and such as the library, or for if somebody's paying a bill for that only purpose, there are certain exemptions in place. Contractors, for instance, wanting to enter into the facility, so they do not have to go through those processes. But at the same time, we do have the screening protocols that we developed, and those are in effect as well. All of the information is posted on our municipal website. I applaud our staff. They've done a good job outlining and explaining this. So I would encourage all of the patrons or users or residents that want to take advantage of using our facilities to take a quick look, 5-10 minutes, and check out the URL that's on the website there. It contains a good breakdown of the information. The next slide speaks to the Section 22 health order, and this is something that just took effect yesterday, where we received information last evening. It comes into effect tomorrow, and it's issued from a Chief Medical Officer of Health, and it has two distinct orders. One is in relation to placing limits on social gatherings, where those are now capped at 25 people for any indoor settings and 100 people for any outdoor gatherings. What I would encourage people is for certain types of events to just confirm with the health unit in terms of how they can work with the health unit on making sure that their event takes place, because there are, I understand, certain events like our Ilderton Fair, where it's been planned, there's a lot of work that went into it. And so this order is only applicable to certain event settings. And in conversation with the health unit, they will determine how this order will apply based on the situation or scenario. The second order that has been issued is in relation to establishments that serve food and alcohol. And as you see on the screen, it's just a confirmation of process in terms of patrons that must wear a face mask except for when they are consuming food or beverage. So those are two orders that took effect, and I just want to bring that to council and our residents' attention. Just going through the rest of the PowerPoint presentation, the vaccination program is well underway. It's being administered through the local health unit. It's now reverted to more pop-up clinics. Basically, it used to be stationary in some of the larger arenas, and one in Strath and Caradoc in the county, and then throughout the city of London. What I'd encourage people to do is just check the URL information that's on the PowerPoint here. That speaks to the eligibility, and that speaks to when the booking takes place. At this point in time, there is a lot of availability. So I'd encourage everyone to just check the information to first read through it, get educated, and then they can decide for themselves to learn about getting vaccinated. But it's been quite successful to date, and the municipality will do its part to encourage and share information. The next slide speaks to the guidelines that have been instituted for staff. And effective on September 17th, a guideline has been administered for all municipal staff, and that took effect last Friday. And so patrons entering into our municipal facilities should feel assured that as public servants, we've done our part and are doing our part to keep a safe work environment and play environment for our patrons. A report will be forthcoming to October Council to look at expanding this scope. And so at that time, that will come before Council in the next couple of weeks to ensure that we can look at consideration to expand the processes and guidelines for others entering into our facilities. Moving to the next slide, we are in the midst of the fourth wave, unfortunately. Our facilities are open to the public at this point in time. Things may change based on provincial regulations, but For the purposes of this presentation to council and residents, we are open to the public. Our screening protocols are in place. We have transitioned a lot of services online or by appointment where necessary, and we'll continue to do so and use these avenues to provide service to the public. The next slide just speaks to our continuity of essential services. And although we're in a fourth wave, we've been continuing to shift and conduct services as best as possible to serve the public. All of our services have remained in effect. So our important services, which are all of them, public works, water, wastewater, recreation, they've all continued as best as possible. We have seen some changes to how we work. So we do have a work from home where possible based on the type of position or the type of work that's being done. But all functions are working right now. Our building department has continued. And this has been a combination of staff dedication and thinking smarter in terms of how we utilize technology and how we automate our services to continue operating and responding to public needs. Moving ahead, our operations for municipal staff. As I said, guidelines took effect this past Friday, but in addition to that, we've had continued communications to staff. We've had health and safety training for all staff. Everyone that's transitioned back to regular working hours have received proper guidelines that are in place. And we have all of our daily screening protocols, not just for staff, but for contractors and patrons entering into facilities. So you'll notice a lot of signage that's in effect at all of our facilities. So we're doing everything we can to ensure that we've got safe working environments and environments for all individuals entering into public facilities. As you'll see on the screen here, these are QR codes, and these codes are in effect at all of our facilities. So this is what I was alluding to, and easy for visitors and staff to do this with the click of a phone. Again, we've accommodated patrons if they don't have the QR capability. It's a quick screening that we ask at the front entrance before entering into the facility, and that's all recorded in case it ever needs to be retrieved. Our CFO has done a wonderful job providing council with frequent updates in response to the pandemic and our revenues and expenses. And so I won't get too much into it, but those cost containment strategies have remained in effect. And we've made decisions at a council level, at an emergency control group level, in terms of how do we provide services, but at the same time be mindful of how we operate as an organization in response to the pandemic. And we've provided information to council based on recovery funding that's been received from the province on a frequent basis. Our council meetings have remained, for the most part, I think, successful. This hybrid model where we've been able to convene in a safe manner and at the same time conduct the business of the municipality. And so I applaud the clerk and his staff, and we're continuing to conduct our meetings like this. And I envision with us still being in the fourth wave, we'll continue to do this to ensure that we continue to have as many people participate and so that we can move business forward. Just some next steps. We're continuing to meet as an emergency control group. We're monitoring and responding to the provincial and health unit directions and protocols. We're providing assistance when called upon to encourage individuals to get vaccinated. And we're making sure staff are equipped to work productively and have the proper PPE and flexible working arrangements and sanitation for what they need to do their job. And as I mentioned at the beginning, I encourage everyone to check the URL on the website. Our communication staff have done a fantastic job to keep information relevant and current. So if there are questions, we direct people to the website and they can learn everything there is to know in response to the pandemic. And that is a quick summary in terms of the information. I just wanted council to know of these updates, and especially it being timely with today's regulation and tomorrow's order. As we've observed through this pandemic, things are always constantly changing. So proud of staff and council for how we've acted as an organization, and we'll continue to do so to see this pandemic through.
Thank you for that very comprehensive update. I'm looking to council. Are there any questions of the CAO or comments? I don't see any hands. So I'll just reinforce that. I think on behalf of council, we are very proud of the team here and all the work that's been happening. I know a lot of people in the community do access our web pages for information. It's always up to date and current. And we certainly don't hear a lot of complaints about service. The water continues to flow and the garbage is picked up, and people can get in and or call and or access information and staff as needed. So I say kudos to our staff and keep doing what you're doing. Thank you. Now, moving on to the next item is 6.1. We have a motion before us that the minutes for the meeting held on September 8th be adopted as printed. Is there a mover, please, and a seconder? Councillor Shipley and Councillor Arts, all in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. We have 4 items on our consent agenda tonight. Is there anything here that anyone wants to comment on or draw attention to, inquire about before we make a motion? I don't see any hands. Then the motion before us is that items 7.1 through 7.4 listed on the consent agenda for September 22, 2021 be adopted as recommended. A mover, please, and a seconder. Councillor Cates and Councillor Heffernan, all in favor? And that is carried. Moving on to staff reports, the first item is going to be presented by our Director of Corporate Services, Tiffany Farrell, and that will focus on the budget survey results. Tiffany.
Thank you. So through you, Mayor DeVete. So this year, the survey was launched mid-July to August 24th, 2021, following the Community Services Master Plan Survey and the Public Works Sidewalk Survey. The report outlines the information that was completed during the 2022 survey. So you'll notice in the attached, there is a presentation. Please have a read and go through it in detail. And as well, if for those of you that completed the survey and you provided comments that you wanted to address, all of those will be addressed. It will be posted to our website on our budget page for 2022, and all of those comments or questions or concerns or the one thing that really mattered to you for budget has been addressed. And so please take a look at our website after this meeting. So we did receive 207 responses, which was down from 2020. We do believe that the response rate going down had to do with the fact that people might have been surveyed out in our municipality, since we did have the Community Services Master Plan and the Public Works Survey right before we launched this budget survey. As well, it could also go towards the fact that people are generally happy with the services they're receiving here at Middlesex Centre. So that brings me to my next point. So 89.26% of respondents thought the services they received were either fair, good, or excellent, and that compared to 89% last year. So just down very, very slightly. But it does look like some great results here for the municipality. So some takeaways here. So as always, the information gathered in the 2022 budget survey was shared among the managers and directors in the organization, so responses could be gathered, and they will be posted to the website this week as noted. The information that is gathered is also used to develop our 2022 budget. The structure around this survey was a little bit different than in the past. So we were trying to spice things up a little bit, and we were looking at how satisfied residents were with the specific services and if they wanted them to be enhanced, maintained, or reduced. So overall, about 89% of the respondents thought the services they received were either fair, good, or excellent. And just over half of those were either satisfied or very satisfied with the services. So for those areas that maybe people were not so satisfied with, so they were dissatisfied or very dissatisfied, there were a few items that hit above 25%. So these items we're going to be looking at in a little bit more detail internally when we're developing our budget for 2022. So community standards and bylaw enforcement came up. Some of the comments we saw had to do with more enforcement, more laying of charges in order to fund this program. Policing came up as being dissatisfied and very dissatisfied. So we're going to take a look at that internally. Traffic management and traffic and pedestrian safety. So similar to what we've heard in the past, safety is a big concern in the municipality with respect to, we have the crosswalk in Ilderton that many had commented on, some congestion issues with the municipality growing. So it's something that they are looking at internally, and obviously speeding. Land use planning came up during that part. as well. So comments around affordable housing, as well as this could be around the growth. We did have a significant amount of comments with respect to people not being happy with the growth within the municipality. And then economic development, and this is no surprise with COVID. So attracting more businesses, the lack of commercial industrial properties, which we have talked about here as a team and in council during all of our budget discussions in the past, and local employment, which is so important, especially during COVID, to ensure that we are supporting our local businesses. And so the next part of the survey was the majority. We asked people how, if you like the services and if you would like them to maintain our taxes. So we're looking at how you want to spend the money. And so the majority of the respondents had said they wanted to maintain taxes and fees, even if it meant that some services needed to be reduced in order to maintain others. And so that was input into the survey as well. There wasn't too much actually that came back as people wanting to see as a reduction in services. So what I looked at here was anything over 15% where people said they wanted a reduction. And we had a few items that were of note. So we will take a look at this internally. Those included community standards by law enforcement, biking lanes, cycling facilities, community outreach and support, including community groups, fairs, and archives, diversity and inclusion programs, tourism sector development, and indoor and outdoor recreation facilities were among those that people had noted above 15% to reduce. So that's something that we'll take a look at and discuss as a team. And then when we were looking at the overall responses with respect to asset management, the priority in the municipality was roads. So the majority of the respondents had noted that roads was of the most important to maintain. And so that's a good thing to hear, because that is something that is prevalent in our asset management plan, is one of our largest assets that the municipality is working hard at maintaining. So all of these items are going to be analyzed as part of our 2022 budget. And in the final presentation that comes to council with respect to the budget, we'll be tying in the survey and a lot of those comments that we're seeing. So there's some exciting things that are happening in 2022. With respect to, say, a new diversity and inclusion program here at Middlesex Center. That's part of our 2022 budget. So it was really nice to see the residents kind of putting that in their comments as well. So we will be tying all that in, and stay tuned. And I do appreciate everyone's responses and feedback as part of the budget survey. And at this point, Mayor DeVitt, if there's any questions.
Thank you for that presentation. I'll look to council and see if there are any questions or comments. I don't see any hands. Thank you for that report. There's always a lot of good information in those surveys, so I appreciate your undertaking that yet again. There we go. Now, the next item up is planning matter. We have an application for official plan amendment, and I'm going to look to Marion Cabral, our staff member, who's going to provide the report for us.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. Can I go ahead? I was just joining in.
We can hear you, and you're on the screen, so it was a little choppy at the beginning. It's good
Okay,
now.
I'll try to work my way through, but if I need to repeat, just let me know.
Okay.
So the purpose of this report is to provide Council with a recommendation regarding an official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment applications at the corner of Carriage Road and Sharon Drive. I'll just share my screen really quickly. Okay, so hopefully everyone can see the location map on your screen. The lands are approximately 16.7 hectares in area and contains regulated area as well as natural heritage features. The land was vacant of buildings but actively farmed. However, the owner is proposing that they would construct a new single-family home. Switch over to the site plan. So the purpose and effect of this official plan amendment application is to add a special policy area designation to allow a second dwelling unit in an accessory building. Currently, the official plan only permits converted dwellings within agricultural areas. And the purpose of the zoning bylaw amendment application is to rezone the site-specific agricultural zone to permit that second unit within an accessory building, and permit the accessory building to be larger than the maximum required, so a maximum of 192 square meters, and also have a maximum height of 7 meters. Currently, the zoning bylaw does not permit any second units outside of the main dwelling, and accessory buildings are limited to a maximum height of 6.5 meters, as well as a maximum size of 165 square meters. So the applicant is proposing to construct a building that contains a garage that's oriented towards Sharon Drive, and the dwelling unit also located at the rear of the building. This dwelling unit is approximately 104 square meters and consumes just over half of the total area of the accessory building. The applicant is also proposing that the main dwelling and the accessory building will share servicing. So the Planning Act authorizes municipalities to permit additional residential units within single detached, semi-detached townhouse units and within an accessory building. And the Planning Act also provides direction for the provincial policy statement to permit these types of housing as an alternative form of housing. Currently, Middlesex Centre is reviewing its official plan to include these types of policies. However, the owner wanted to get ahead of the review to provide housing options for a family member. Staff reviewed the proposal and generally find it consistent with the Planning Act and with the PPS and conform to the housing policies of the county and Middlesex Centre official plan. Staff did work with the applicant to ensure that the building remains accessory and subordinate to the main dwelling by connecting, servicing, and locating it within proximity to the main dwelling. We've also reviewed the request for an increase in height and the maximum lot coverage and find it generally it's minor in nature and would not result in a significant impact to the surrounding areas. And specifically related to the size, staff requested that the non-habitable portion, so the garage portion of this building, be comparable in size to the second dwelling unit itself, and this resulted in the larger building size. So this application was also circulated in accordance with the Planning Act to residents, agencies, and staff. Staff did not receive any correspondence from any area residents. However, I did receive a call from a neighbor just asking about the potential for expanding or introducing a new livestock or manure facility as a result of this application. The principal dwelling is a permitted use and would have the potential alone to limit any livestock or manure facility in relation to the minimum separation distance. So the addition of the secondary unit would not further limit their ability. Municipal staff do not have any concerns with the amendments. And Lower Thames Conservation Authority did not provide any comments. However, the applicant is aware of the natural heritage features on their property and the regulated areas. And if any development was proposed within or within proximity to, they would require approval or permits from the CA. So given the aforementioned, planning staff determined that the requested amendments are consistent with the Planning Act and the PPS and maintain the county and local official plan policies. Staff recommend that the official plan amendment be adopted as proposed and forwarded to the County of Middlesex for consideration. Additionally, staff recommend that the zoning bylaw amendment application be approved as requested. And I'll be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you for that presentation, Marion. I'll look to council. Other questions for Marion? Councillor Cates?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Marion. I fully, understand and support the additional housing, especially for a family member, et cetera. What I'm really conflicted at is the shared septic. There's going to be a laundry, kitchen, full bathroom, probably a dishwasher, like all of those things on that septic. How do we even know that the septic system is big enough for that? Or am I out of turn here and this is something that you'll review when it comes to you at the county?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Cates, that's a great question. The benefit of this application is that it is a brand new septic system, brand new dwelling that's going in. And when I had discussed it with the designer, they were taking into account both the main dwelling and the accessory building. Your concern would be very, very valid, especially if it was a brand new accessory building or a brand new residential unit with an existing septic system. So the benefit is that during the designing of the building, they have taken into consideration both the dwelling units.
Okay, so that's different than that's really good to hear, because I thought, I was shocked when I read this, because it says that they plan to share a septic. I don't think it says anywhere that it's new. So the existing house and the new house, the new dwelling, will all have their sizing and be in a new septic.
Yeah, so I don't know if it's currently under construction right now. I know the property owner was intending to construct a main dwelling this summer, so the septic system was designed when that new house was or is proposed to be going in.
Oh, so they're building a new house and this, both things are new.
That's correct.
All of it's new. That's why I couldn't figure out why there wasn't a house on the map already. Okay, all right, thanks for clarifying.
Any additional questions? Councillor Heffernan.
Through the mayor to Marion. The one on the attachment 3 on page 2, it sort of looks like there's an overhead door on the one side. And I'm just wondering, like, so it's a 3-car garage with a rear overhead door on one side, and then they have an attached garage as well. It's a lot of space for vehicles, but I guess some people have that many. But what is the purpose of the rear overhead door?
Okay. Sorry, through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Heffernan. We're looking at the sorry, I'm just trying to pull up the drawing. Okay, so I'm just looking at the rear of the house. The applicant has noted on their building floor plan that rear door towards the rear of the unit is actually like a sliding door, not like a garage door or anything.
Okay, I thought it was the garage with the attached dwelling.
Yes, so the accessory building has 3 garage doors at the front, and then at the rear, which I believe is the drawing you're asking about, there is another large door, and that is it's a sliding door.
Okay. And I don't think you addressed it, but when you were talking about the agency comments, the chief building officer has concerns, but it doesn't say what they are and how they would be addressed in the report.
Oh, so when I received comments from the chief building official, he had concerns primarily with the shared septic system. However, I worked with the applicant and with building services, and we tried to rectify that situation. Essentially, the building official wanted to have separate septic systems. And from a planning perspective, we would not support an application like that because it would allow or potentially allow for the severance of, the accessory residential unit to create another lot. I'm not saying that the applicant would do that, but it does present an option in the future if it is separated.
Thank you.
Councillor Cates.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Marion. So just to clarify, you'll have like some kind of hold or whatever you need to do on this to ensure that the septic system is designed, et cetera, properly, or maybe you're saying that the building permit process would take care of that.
Yes, that's correct. So once the applicants obtain building permits, it would be addressed at that stage.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else? Okay, and we do have the agent for the file, Michael Correa. Is that right? Sorry about that if I messed it up. He has registered to speak to the application. I'm wondering if there's anything you'd like to add.
Hello.
There we are. Good evening. Is there anything you'd like to comment on or present or add to what we've heard so far?
Yes, thank you for taking the time to review my client's application. To address the council is that my client's been she acquired the property this year, and her goal is to add a secondary dwelling behind the garage just to accommodate her parents, her older parents. So yeah, I think that what my client has done, she's designed a build where both dwellings are designed that has a great curb appeal, and also as well the septic system is designed to outfit both dwellings as well too. So everything's been considered in the application process, and the calculations have been done. So so everything fits accordingly to the regulations and building policies.
Okay, thank you for that. Is there anything anyone wants to ask of the agent? Okay, well, thank you for that presentation and the clarifications.
Okay, thank you very much.
Do we want to hear from the owner? Okay, so I think that's everything we need to consider as far as input. We have a motion before us that the official plan amendment number 55 for the land legally described as concession 2, part lots 9 and 10 in the former township of Delaware, municipality of Middlesex Center be adopted and forward to the county of Middlesex for consideration of approval. And that the zoning bylaw application filed by Everly Homes Incorporated on behalf of Sandra Mayo to rezone the subject property from A1 zone to the site-specific agricultural A1-36 zone for the property legally described as concession 2, part lots 9 and 10 in the former township of Delaware, municipality of Middlesex Center be approved. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor Scott and Councillor Shipley, all in favor? And that motion is carried. Thank you for that presentation. And we can now move on to our chief building official, who's going to provide an overview of the pre-budget approval for the administrative assistant position report. Arnie.
Sorry. Thank you, Mayor DeVitt, and through the mayor to council. I'm introducing the staff report, looking for approval from council for the addition of an administrative assistant position to support building division. We'd like to start with this position as soon as possible. So this report is coming as an amendment to this year's budget and would be carried into the budget for 2022. The need for this position, as council knows, we've seen a significant building boom over the past 3 years, each year really increasing on each other, and this year all more the same. It's this year we'll beat last year's numbers by a significant amount. So this position would provide assistance with invoicing and reporting, closing permits, and monitoring building division emails and voice messages. As council knows, building division is self-funded through user fees, and this position would be entirely funded through building permit fees. And staff has reviewed that with our treasury department, and we're satisfied that we are within our limits of affording this position. This position would also become part of our administrative assistant team as well. So it'd be there to also assist other departments and coverage for other admin assistants. So I'm available to answer any questions if council has any.
Okay, thank you for that report, Arnie. Council, are there questions about this position? Very well, I don't see any questions. So we do have a motion before us that the report BLD 07-2021 regarding pre-budget approval for administrative assistant building services be received, and that council authorize the addition of a new full-time permanent administrative assistant building services position in building and development services commencing in 2021. Could I have a mover, please, for this? Deputy Mayor Brennan and Councillor Arts, all in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much for that, Arnie.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Okay, now we need a motion to move into the Committee of Adjustment, which is that council adjourn its regular meeting in order to sit as a Committee of Adjustment under Section 45 of the Planning Act 1990 as amended to consider minor variance applications listed on tonight's agenda. We have a mover, please, and a seconder. Councillor Scott and Councillor Cates, all in favor? And that is carried. Okay, I'm going to just go through the preamble as always. The members of the public that are participating virtually in this evening's public meeting have previously provided notification to the municipal clerk in advance of the meeting. If anyone wishes to receive further notification on any of the minor variance applications being considered tonight, I ask that you please send an email to planning@middlesexcentre.on.ca requesting further clarification. Please be advised that comments expressed and written material presented are a matter of public record for full disclosure. If you have any questions on any of the applications being heard this evening, we ask that you direct those to the appropriate planner on file. Members of the public that have requested to speak will be given a maximum of 10 minutes to address council and provide comments on applications. In keeping with our procedural bylaw and our R-zone policy, I would remind all of our meeting participants to use respectful language and uphold our values of cooperation, trust, and openness. The order of proceedings is the same for each of the applications, and the order of procedure shall be as follows. First, I will ask the planner to present the purpose of the application and hearing and to present the staff report. Then the applicant or their agent has the opportunity to speak to this application. The public who have registered to participate will be asked for comments and questions. Please ensure that you state your name and address so that comments can be reflected in the minutes. Fourth, the municipal clerk will provide any additional comments received from circulated agencies and the public not included in the planning report. Next, the committee may then ask questions of the applicant or staff. And finally, I'm going to then ask for to consider motions regarding the application that we've just heard. So the first item up is an application for minor variance. And Dan Fitzgerald is the planner on this and will be giving an overview of the report.
Yeah, so through the chair, thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the committee. The purpose and effect of this application, which is A18-2021, is a minor variance to seek relief from the Middlesex Centre Comprehensive Bylaw as it relates to the maximum permissible height for an accessory building that is located in the agricultural A1 zone. So in this instance, the applicant is requesting a maximum height of 13.4 meters or 44 feet for a residential accessory building, whereas the bylaw permits a maximum height of 6.5 meters or 21.3 feet. The effect of the proposal in this case is to facilitate the construction of a residential accessory structure in the format of a silo for the stated purpose of residential storage. So before I proceed, I will put up a map so that everyone can see the property I'm referring to. The subject property is located at 5749 Woodhall Road. It is approximately 71 acres in area with frontage of approximately 310 meters on Woodhall Road. It is located on the west side of Woodhall, north of the intersection at Woodhall and Littlewood Drive. The lands currently contain a single detached dwelling as well as several existing accessory farm structures. It is bordered by agricultural lands on all sides. It is designated also agricultural area in the county official plan, agricultural in the Middlesex Centre official plan, and is zoned agricultural A1 zone in the zoning bylaw. No comments were received from the public during circulation of the application. As well, staff did not receive any concerns during the circulation of the application from internal staff or agencies. However, I do note that the chief building official did provide comment that additional design details or limitations may be required if the approval of the structure, because of the nature of the state of it, aside from the building's proposal. So with that said, staff do note that the intent of the applicant is to construct a residential accessory building for the purpose of storage. However, as stated in the planning report, staff are concerned that the proposed height of the accessory building is not minor. Also, it does not meet the intent of the zoning bylaw and would not be considered appropriate given the proposed height would in fact exceed the maximum permissible height of the principal use in the zone, that being the single detached dwelling. As such, given the above, I am recommending that this particular application be denied. Thank you, and I certainly am available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you for that report, Dan. The property owner has not registered to speak, and I've confirmed that he's not changed that since the minutes were prepared. There were no additional comments received by the clerk. I will look then to the committee to ask any questions if they have any. Councillor Shipley.
Through the mayor to Dan, I guess the most obvious question is, what are we storing in this thing?
Through the chair to Councillor Shipley, the only thing that was noted to me in discussion with the applicant's agent was the secure storage of residential items.
Add on?
Yeah, just an add-on. So I just looking at the satellite view, there is a silo already there. What I understand, is that something that could be converted to do what the applicant wants to do?
So through the chair, I think the applicant's intent in this case was to have the building as storage structure, and then also to have a residential component, not in the necessary fact of any type of livable space, but of having an area up top that they were able to look out and view the natural landscape, which was kind of, I guess, portrayed to me by the agent for this particular application. So with respect to an existing silo, certainly one could go and place items in an existing silo on their property. However, it would not be permitted for a residential accessory use.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Councillor Scott.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just maybe could enlighten a few people about it. I did speak to Mr. Monteith about this because he called me because I think he had heard something about having some problems getting it done. It looks like it was designed by a Sunroom Place, London, that's doing it, I think, in the back. So he explained to me what he was trying to do is basically create an area like a residential, not a residential area to live, but an area, and a stairway and a walkway to go up to it to have a lookout over the land. And so he was asking me, and I mean, I'd already talked to him. I knew there was nothing we really could do to make that work, other than joining it to the property, which was suggested to him at the time to protect it, and like have an opportunity to do that. And I thought when I spoke to him, that was kind of what his direction was going to be. So, but anyway, I did have reference, and I did talk with him. That's kind of where we left off. So, just that helps anybody.
Thank you for that additional detail. Is there anyone else? Councillor Cates?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Dan. I got to say, this took me a while to figure out what he was actually asking for when I saw the 4-season sunroom and a sunroom silo. So you're calling it a residential storage. So I had the same question, what are they putting in there? And now that I look at it, they're almost trying to create like a lighthouse kind of an effect where you climb up the stairs and go up there. So the other silo that's on there, would it be considered an agricultural silo and they're calling this one residential silo?
Through the chair to Councillor Cates, that's correct. So the existing silo that's on the property would be considered an agricultural use. Agricultural uses are not subject to the same regulations and stipulations for accessory structures, which are specific to residential uses. So in this particular case, because it is considered a livable space that they are trying to create, it is a residential accessory structure, meaning that the section 4.1 of the bylaw does apply, where the maximum in the case of height is 6.5 meters. And in this case, I believe he's applying for over 13 meters in height.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, it's like double what they're allowed. And then comes the next, when the word residential keeps coming up, and is it going to have running water? And so then eventually, does somebody actually end up living in there? So thank you for your answer, Stan.
If there's no one else. Oh, yes, Councillor Heffernan.
Through the mayor to Dan, on the sketch of the site plan, it says center the silo on the house face. Is that just for where it's going to be located off the back of the house, or is it actually going to be attached to the house?
Through the chair to Councillor Heffernan, the conversation with the applicant's agent, was initially to consider attaching the structure to the house, so doing a building addition as opposed to a detached residential accessory structure. In that case, if it was an attached addition to the existing dwelling, they would be afforded the maximum height of the zone, which I believe is 40 feet. So it would get them, basically the initial application that they had was for a 40-foot building. They had then amended it to a 44-foot building. Based on that, it would have given them the height that they needed in terms of it, building the structure, as long as it was attached to the building. However, in subsequent conversations with the applicant's agents as well as the building department, they determined that they did not want to attach the structure for their own reasons of concern. So that's why they have placed it far enough away from the building to be fully considered a detached accessory.
Thank you.
Is there anything else? Seeing none, then no other questions, then we have a motion before us that minor variance application A18-2021 filed by Lloyd Monteith for relief from a comprehensive zoning bylaw in order to establish a maximum height of 13.4 meters for an accessory building, whereas the zoning bylaw permits maximum height of 6.5 meters for a property municipally known as 5749 Woodhull Road be denied, and that the reasons for denying the variance include that the request does not comply with the general intent and purpose of Middlesex Centre's comprehensive zoning bylaw, the request is not minor in nature, and the request does not represent appropriate development on the subject property. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Arts and Councillor Cates. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, that is carried. Okay, we'll move on to item 9.2, and Dan is the planner on this file again. So if you'd like to give the planning report, please.
And so through the chair, the purpose and effect of this particular application for minor variance is to seek relief from Middlesex Centre's bylaw as it does relate to the requirement for municipal servicing in the urban residential first density zone. The applicant in this case is requesting to remove and replace an existing dwelling, which is on private services, whereas Middlesex Centre's zoning bylaw does require that dwellings within the UR1 zone be connected to both the public water supply system as well as a sanitary sewage system. The effect of the proposal, again, is to permit the demolition and replacement of an existing home on a lot that does not maintain servicing capabilities in ARVA, specific to septic in this case. So, the subject property is located at 7 Sir Robert Place in ARVA. It is approximately 0.75 acres in area on a corner lot with frontage that is maintained off of Sir Robert Place. The subject lands are located, again, in ARVA, east of Highway 4. The lot is surrounded on all sides by residentially zoned lands in the form of single detached dwellings. The lands currently contain a single detached dwelling, which is requested to be removed and replaced within an existing subdivision. They are designated settlement area in the county official plan, residential in Middlesex Centre's official plan, and again, it's zoned urban residential first density, or the UR1 zone in the bylaw. So in review of the proposal, planning staff are of the opinion that the minor variance meets the 4 Planning Act tests. Staff note that municipal services in the format of sanitary do not exist within the area, and extensions of the services are not planned at this particular time. As such, the requirement for municipal services would not be necessary for the development of these lands. Further, no comments were received from neighboring landowners during circulation of the application. However, I would note recent discussions today with Public Works and Engineering did identify that municipal water services do extend to this property. So that's a bit of a departure from the nomenclature that's included in the planning report. So in light of this discussion, planning staff are recommending the inclusion of a condition that it be added to the decision, clarifying that the minor variance would only apply to the requirement of sanitary services, and that the development be required to connect to the municipal water service that is within Sir Robert. Additionally, a draft of this condition has been provided to James Hudson, that he can provide it to the committee upon vote. Additionally, a comment was received today from the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority, noting that the property is regulated, as you can see in this picture, and that they did an investigation on the property and don't have any concerns with the placement of a new septic system. They did note that they would prefer full municipal services in terms of sanitary, but do recognize the fact that sanitary services do not exist within this area. They noted that a Section 28 permit would be required for any replacement on the particular property. So given the above, I am recommending that the minor variance application, which is A28-2021, be approved, subject to the condition that the minor variance only apply to the requirements for sanitary service, and that the development shall be required to hook onto municipal water services. Thank you.
Okay, sorry about that. Just clarifying the condition. We have the applicant registered. Is he attending?
Yes.
He is. Okay, Gerard Marara, pardon me. If you'd like to make your comments, the floor is yours.
Good evening. Is everyone able to hear me okay?
Perfectly. Go ahead. The floor is yours, sir.
Well, good evening. I'd like to thank council and your planning team for considering this minor variance application. Dan's done a great job of describing the details of the application, and I'm aligned with his guidance and justification. I don't have any further information to add at this time. However, I'm available to answer any questions that you may have.
Then thank you for that. So we have the owner who is also available if we have questions of him. The clerk hasn't indicated that there are any other comments received other than those that were mentioned by the planner. I'll look to committee then to ask any questions. I don't see any hands. In that case, we have a motion before us and we've amended the wording with the conditions. So I'm going to ask the clerk to read it so that it's properly reflecting the appropriate changes.
Thank you. So I'll be reading forth the motion that appeared in your council packages with the addition of one condition. And that motion reads as follows. That minor variance application A28-2021 filed by Gerard Mara on behalf of Nick Davies for relief from the zoning bylaw in order to build a new single detached dwelling, which is not connected to municipal services. Whereas the zoning bylaw requires all single detached dwellings in the urban residential first density zone to be connected to municipal water and sanitary services for a property municipally known as 7 Sir Robert Place be granted. And that one condition be added as spoken to in the planner's report, which reads as follows. That the minor variance only apply to the requirement for sanitary services and that the development shall be required to hook up to municipal water services. Finally, reading forth the remainder of the motion, and that the reasons for granting the minor variance application include the request complies with the general intent and purpose of the official plan. The request complies with the general intent and purpose of the comprehensive zoning bylaw. The request is minor in nature, and the request represents appropriate development on the subject property. I'll turn it back over to the chair with respect to the vote at this time.
Thank you. And I'll call the vote then. All those, oh yes, sorry. Moved by Councillor Cates and seconded by Councillor Shipley. And all in favor? And that is carried. Thank you for that. And we'll look to Dan again for the next application. It's for minor variance as well. And Jeff and Janine Paul are the property owners of this for this request. There you are. Go ahead, Dan.
Through the chair, thanks, members of the committee. The purpose and effect of application for minor variance, which is A29/2021, is to seek relief from Middlesex Center's comprehensive zoning bylaw, as it does relate to the location of a proposed accessory building in the agricultural A1 zone. So the applicant is requesting permission to place an accessory building within the exterior side yard, whereas section 4.1 subsection AII as well as I of Middlesex Center's comprehensive zoning bylaw requires that all residential accessory buildings be located no closer to the exterior side property line than the main dwelling, being the single detached dwelling in this particular case. The effect of the proposal is, again, to facilitate the construction of one detached accessory structure for the intended stated purpose of storage. So the subject property in this case is located at 10751 Westminster Drive. It is approximately 46.2 acres in area and is on a corner lot with frontage of approximately 210 meters on Carriage Road. The subject land represents an agricultural parcel with associated residential uses. And it is bordered by a large lot agricultural lands on all sides. It's designated agricultural area in the county official plan, agricultural in Middlesex Center's official plan, and is zoned agricultural A1 zone in the zoning bylaw. The lands currently contain a single detached dwelling, as well as agricultural land which are used for crop production. No comments were received from any neighboring properties or the public upon circulation of the application. As well, we did not receive any concerns from internal or external agencies upon circulation. So in review of the proposal, planning staff are of the opinion that the proposed minor variance does meet the 4 Planning Act tests. Staff note that the proposed location for the accessory structure is buffered, as well as screened from the road by a large change in grade, as well as an established treed area in front of the building. Given the above, staff are satisfied that the single detached dwelling will appear to be the dominant structure on the land from the road. And so I am of the opinion that the variance is appropriate and recommend approval of application A29/2021. Thank you.
Thank you for the report, Dan. The property owners are available to answer questions from the committee if this as required. There were no comments received by the clerk. I'm going to look to committee then. Are there questions on this application? Councillor Heffernan?
Through the mayor to Dan, your report indicates that the purpose of this building is for storage, and yet the site plan location indicates it's for a shop. And I'm just wondering, can it be a shop? Like, is that another business that they're adding on to this? Is that allowed on the agricultural land?
Through the chair to Councillor Heffernan. So I think the intent of the applicant was placing the title shop as a personal shop for them for their storage of their equipment on site and then for hobby activities. So to answer your question more directly, an accessory automotive service business would not be permitted on an agricultural parcel plan.
Follow on?
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Other questions? I don't see any additional questions from the committee. We do have a motion before us that the minor variance application A29/2021 filed by Jeffrey and Janine Paul for the relief from the zoning bylaw in order to establish an exterior side yard setback closer to the road than the main dwelling, whereas the zoning bylaw requires accessory buildings to be located no closer to the front and exterior side yard of the main building or structure for a property municipally known as 10751 Westminster Drive be approved, and that the reasons for approving the minor variance application include the zoning request complies with general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw, the request complies with the general intent and purpose of the official plan, the request is minor in nature, and the request represents appropriate and desirable development on the subject property. Do I have a mover, please, and a seconder? Councillor Scott, and I saw a hand here. Sorry, Councillor Shipley. Thank you. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much, Dan. We can now move to 9.4, and this is another minor variance. If you'd like to present the report, go ahead.
Through the chair, thanks again, and to members of the committee. So the purpose and effect of this application for minor variance is to seek relief from Middlesex Center's zoning bylaw, as it does relate to the maximum permissible gross floor area, as well as the minimum separation standard from a principal dwelling for an accessory building for lots that are located within the urban residential third density exception UR3-6 zone. The applicant is requesting a maximum size for accessory buildings on the land of 20.6 square meters, or represented as 5.9% lot coverage, whereas Middlesex Center's comprehensive zoning bylaw does permit a maximum size of 5% lot coverage, which in this case would be 17.4 square meters. Further, the applicant is requesting permission to place one accessory building at a distance of 1 meter from the dwelling, whereas the bylaw requires a minimum setback from the main dwelling for an accessory building of 1.2 meters. The effect of the proposal is to facilitate the placement of two separate accessory buildings on a vacant land condominium unit. So just as a point of clarification, the planning report did have an error in the accessory building size provisions for this particular land. So just as a point of clarification, the urban residential third density exception UR3-6 zone does have its own accessory building provisions in the zoning bylaw. And it is exempt from section 4.1 with respect to the size limitations. So in this particular case, the bylaw states that the maximum permissible size for a unit is 55% lot coverage. And then it also allows for an additional 5% maximum lot coverage for an accessory structure on this particular site. So that gives it an overall total of 60% lot coverage for units with this particular zoning. So the subject property is located at 9861 Glendon Drive and is unit 425 on a vacant land condominium plan. It is approximately 345 square meters in area and is located on a corner lot with a frontage of approximately 11.7 meters off of an internal private road. The subject lands are located in Kamoka on the south side of Glendon, west of the intersection at Glendon Drive and Kamoka Road. And it's in the Bellalago development within Kamoka. It is bordered by residential lands on all sides, both in the format of townhouse dwelling units as well as single detached dwelling units to the south. It's designated settlement area in the county official plan, residential in Middlesex Center's official plan, and is zoned an urban residential third density exception UR3-6 zone, as previously noted. So no comments were received from the neighboring landowners during the circulation of the application, and no internal departments noted any concern. So just to reiterate, the variance request on size in this particular case would be to increase from 5% to 5.9%. So it's an addition of 0.9% of lot coverage for this particular case. So in review of the proposal, planning staff are of the opinion that the proposed minor variance does meet the 4 Planning Act tests as indicated in the planning report. So given the above, I am recommending that the minor variance application A30/2021 be approved. Thanks, and I am certainly available to answer any questions on this one.
Thank you for the report, Ben. I forgot to ask. Okay, thank you. We do have the property owner on the line to answer questions if there are any that come forward. And there were no comments received by the clerk. I'll look to the committee then for questions. Are there any for Dan? Councillor Cates?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. I just want to clarify something that you said. You said that they're building 2 buildings, or is it the cabana, the one marked cabana? The other one says existing shed.
Yes, so through the chair to Councillor Cates. So in this particular case, they had applied for a building permit for the cabana. And then they have an existing accessory structure that's located on the lands. Due to the size of that particular the secondary accessory building, because it's below the size of 10 by 10, it doesn't require a building permit. So it was placed on the lands without building permit permission. However, with that said, because zoning bylaw standards still apply for accessory structures, it technically still formulates coverage on the site. And that's why it has been included with this request, along with the cabana, which represents that total 5.9%. So with the initial application for just the cabana, they wouldn't need the additional coverage. However, with the 10 by 10 accessory structure, which is a storage shed in the back, that's what required the additional lot coverage in this case.
Thank you. Now, I get it now. And one thing I think I'm right in pointing out here when we talk about the extra lot coverage is that, again, we have, it's a covered porch or a covered area. It's not an actual whole thing as a structure. It seems to be the covered decks and stuff that push people over, not that it's a big building.
Through the chair, that is correct. It's a cabana structure, so it's not enclosed on any sides. It's open on all sides. It's just a covered area.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else? I don't see any hands, so we can move to the motion now. The motion before us is that minor variance application A-20-2021 filed by Middlesex and Leonie Graham for relief from the zoning bylaw in order to establish a maximum size of 20.6 square meters or 5.9% lot coverage for an accessory building and to permit an accessory building to be located a minimum of 1 meter from the principal structure for property municipally known as 425, that'd be unit 425 at 9861 Glendon Drive, be granted. And that the reasons for granting the minor variance application A-30-2021 are that the request complies with the general intended purpose of Middlesex Centre officials plan, our Middlesex Centre comprehensive zoning bylaw, that the request is minor in nature, and that the request represents appropriate development of the subject property. Is there a mover and a seconder? Councillor Cates and Councillor Heffernan, all in favor? And that carries. Thank you. That brings us to the end of the Committee of Adjustment. So we need now to have a motion that the Committee of Adjustment reconvene as council to move into planning public meetings pursuant to the Planning Act RS 0-1990 as amended to consider planning applications listed on tonight's agenda. A mover, please. Councillor Heffernan and Councillor Arts, all in favor? Thank you. Yes, we can. Okay, we'll take a 2-minute recess before we move into the public agenda. So I have 7:48, about 8 o'clock. Okay, so I'll call the meeting to order, and we have a motion in front of us that the Committee of Adjustment reconvene as council to move into planning public meetings pursuant to Planning Act RSO 1990 as amended to consider planning applications listed on tonight's agenda. So again, members of the public are participating virtually, and they've been previously notified of the meeting in advance by the clerk. If anyone wishes to receive further notification on any of the matters being considered tonight, I ask that you please send your emails to planning@middlesexcentre.on.ca requesting further notification. Please be advised that comments expressed and written material presented are a matter of public record. If you have any questions on any of the applications being heard this evening, we ask that you direct those to the appropriate planner on file. Those who have requested to speak will be given a maximum of 10 minutes to address council and provide comments on applications. In keeping up with our procedural bylaw and our zone policy, I would remind all of our participants to use respectful language and to uphold our values of cooperation, trust, and openness. The proceedings are the same as for the consent, our previous committee, Committee of Adjustment. So I'll ask a planner to present the purpose and application of the hearing and to present the staff report. Then the clerk will provide any additional comments received from circulated agencies and the public not included in the planning report. The applicant and or their agent has the opportunity to speak to the application. After that, the public will be asked for their comments and questions. Please ensure that you state your name and address so that comments can be reflected in the minutes. And then committee may ask questions of the applicant and or staff. And the last thing that will happen is then I will ask for considerations of motions regarding the application that we've just heard about. So we have the first item is an application for draft plan of condominium filed by Longwoods Road Incorporated, and Marion is the planner on this file. I'll ask that you present the report, please.
Great. Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you to Council. The purpose of this report is to provide Council with a recommendation for the proposed plan of condominium at 10915, 10929, and 11157 Longwoods Road in Delaware. And I'll quickly share my screen with everyone. So the site is approximately 16 acres in area and located on the south side of Longwoods Road, east of Martin Drive. The land is actively farmed. However, there was a residence on the land that has since been removed. Residential uses do exist immediately to the west of the property and east along Carriage Road. Industrial, commercial, and residential uses exist to the north side of Longwoods Road, and farmed area is located immediately to the south. The purpose and effect of this application would create 15 lots or units for light industrial uses, as well as a lot for a stormwater management pond. The lots vary in size from 0.74 acres to 1.14 acres in area, and the stormwater management pond is located on a plot that's approximately 1.26 acres in area. The lots are proposed to be fronting onto a private roadway with 2 turning circles that will provide a single access onto Longwoods Road. Further, the roadway and the stormwater management system would be common elements within the condominium. Each lot is proposed to be serviced with municipal water, which will be extended to the lands and contain an individual septic system. The subject lands are designated settlement employment and within the special policy area 5, which requires a noise impact assessment to be completed with mitigation measures prior to any development on the site. The lands are also pre-zoned like industrial exception 2 or M1-2 with a hold. And again, this does permit light industrial uses on the lands. So the application was before council last year in November of 2020. At this meeting, we did receive comments from area residences related to the noise impact assessment that would be required, fencing and any buffers, stormwater management and runoff from the lands, and the effect of domestic water supply. We also received correspondence from another landowner, and the letter is provided and attached to the staff report. They expressed concerns regarding the private servicing and stormwater management plan for the proposed development. Additionally, they have concerns with the lack of noise attenuation measures along the southern and eastern boundary of the land, especially considering future land uses that may exist located south of the property. So the Lower Thames Conservation Authority requested Upper Thames Conservation Authority to review the development and stormwater management plans prior to final approval. And this is a bit of a different request, even though the lands are wholly located within the Lower Thames Valley jurisdiction. Municipal and county staff had a number of comments related to servicing of the site and stormwater, and we have worked with the applicant to address the concerns or identify them as draft plan conditions. So moving into the special conditions, they do include a number that are related to the site. This includes an assessment of chloride levels as a part of a hydrogeological study and overall stormwater management system. The development provide an opportunity to connect to a sanitary system in the future should it come available. So again, this proposal does contemplate septic systems for each individual lot. However, if an extension of the sewer system does come available, we request that some connections or some sort of forward planning for future connections be made available. The private roadway should be designed to municipal standards. There's also an extension of the municipal water main to service the lands, and the cost sharing agreement will be identified through the development agreement. Another condition is that there be sufficient water flow for firefighting purposes or that a dry hydrant be installed. Another condition is to provide fencing along the boundary between the subject property and 10987 Longwoods Road immediately to the west. And that improvements to Longwoods Road, including the construction of a right and left turn lane, be provided by the applicant. So as a result of the aforementioned, staff recommend that council advise the County of Middlesex of draft plan approval of the plan of condominium file known as 39T MC CDM 2002 for the subject lands located in Delaware, subject to a 3-year period. And finally, just due to the nature of the individual industrial uses and the timing of development, staff request that each lot be subject to a site plan agreement prior to any development on the site. And this is to address servicing, parking, stormwater management, and any other municipal standards, as we're not entirely sure of what will go on each individual lot. That would be up to each individual owner. As such, it is requested that council direct staff to prepare a zoning bylaw to implement the holding symbol on the lands to require site plan agreement before any development. And this hold is in addition to the existing hold that requires a noise impact assessment. And I'll be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Okay, thank you for that presentation. We have the consultants, Kyle McIntosh and Steve Saker, who have registered to speak to this application and are here to present. I'll ask that they come on and give us their comments.
Hi there, this is Kyle McIntosh, and I just want to make sure you can hear me.
We can hear you and see you now. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Yes, so I'm the agent for the applicant. I work for MTE Consulting, and we just wanted to, first of all, thank staff and Marion for their time. We've been working on this project for 1.5 years, and I just also wanted to say that we support the staff decision to recommend draft plan approval. I just also want to highlight the public meeting for this was originally, we had an initial public meeting for this project back last November. And I also was here to answer any questions that the council may have.
All right, thank you for that. We also have Patrick Matkowski and Jay McCuffin, along with the Jim Benman from the Cirrus Developments company, who've registered to speak. And are they coming?
We'll bring Jim in now.
Okay, so the only person who's actually here is Mr. Benman, who will be coming on in a minute. Okay, we can't see you. Apparently you are there and you are not muted.
Okay.
We can hear you. There you are.
There now, yeah.
Okay, the floor is yours, Mr. Bannon.
Well, thank you, Mayor DeVete and members of council. I'm Jim Banman from Cirrus Developments. And Cirrus Developments owns the 89-acre parcel to the south and to the east abutting this land. We are encouraged by the progress on this site and by the plans that have been proposed for an industrial condominium. We are certainly supportive of development and any potential employment opportunities that this site may provide within the community of Delaware. And I want to thank staff and council for allowing us to share some comments during the last public meeting as well. So originally we provided a letter and some comments with respect to stormwater, private septic systems, and also noise. And these comments were raised only as it pertains to the potential impact of this proposed industrial development and that it may have on the current farming operations and the potential for future development opportunities for our particular lands. And as you may recall, we have requested that our lands be considered for inclusion in the growth boundary during the official plan review process. So this industrial site is proposed to be raised by between 1 to 2 meters with a self-contained swim pond abutting our lands to the south. And this swim pond is designed to be an infiltration pond and has no outlet. And the stormwater infiltration that is currently distributed evenly over the entire site on the natural site is proposed to be concentrated at a location in the swim pond. So with rains like we have experienced today, for example, I would imagine that soils around that pond would become completely saturated and potentially permanently alter the water tables in that geographic area. So my question to staff is what measures are being proposed to prevent elevated groundwater levels from affecting our current farming operations or any future development potential? And comments from Public Works acknowledge that this pond will eventually overflow. And they also requested further details on where the overflow would go on the adjoining property. So another question, has there been any consideration for outlet control or overflow drainage from this pond through the adjacent lands? We would certainly be willing to review any in engineering proposals, but to date we have not received any of those. I also understand that individual septic systems are proposed for each lot, and the draft plan condition number 6 specifies that the owner install gravity sanitary sewers for future connection to a sanitary system. And we certainly feel that this is a step in the right direction that may provide for more permanent servicing solutions in the future. So we think that is certainly a step in the right direction anyway. So while this plan is largely similar to the initial proposal, we are encouraged by some of the recent changes and some of the conditions that have been presented. So we are supportive of development in Delaware, and we certainly look forward to progress on this site. Thank you.
And thank you for your comments, Ben. I will now turn to our councillors here. Are there questions for any of the presenters or commentators? Go ahead, Councillor Scott.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I suppose I'll direct this question maybe through to Marion or maybe Rob, just to address some of the letters that we got and concerns. I'll mention too that I'm quite in favor of this thing. I think it's going to be great for Delaware. As I mentioned back in November, my only concern is getting the cart in front of the horse. And so I want to make sure that there's an opportunity. I know they don't want to wait too, because that's tough to wait for stuff like that to change. But I'm just wondering, is there going to be an opportunity you know, to address some of the letters that we got with the concerns. I know some people are talking about the wells in the neighborhood, I'm assuming probably to the east of that. And so with the swim pond too and no outlet, I wondered if maybe Rob, if he could maybe comment on that for us all for the benefit and see, you know, if we do move forward in the future with bigger plans, you know, we don't want to mess this up right now.
Okay, thank you. I was just clarifying it. One of the details from your comments. So are there other questions from anyone else on council with respect to the motion or the mapping or no? Okay. I don't see anybody. So we have a motion before us. Councillor Scott? Rob who?
Just to clarify, Madam Mayor, I just was asking Rob or possibly if they could address the concerns with the swim pond and having no outlet and the and maybe some of the there was one letter about possible wells being affected. And then
we can call on Rob, Mary.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And just to go over the fact of with this.
Okay.
You know, with this plan, is there room there to work with what we got maybe possibly happening in the future?
Because Rob has the comments in his reports are in. Okay.
That's right.
All right. So is Rob on the?
Rob is on the call.
Okay. Rob.
Yes. So
there you are. Okay.
Yes.
The question is about the comments from the residents and addressing the issues and concerns that were raised in those documents.
Yeah, so I think through Mayor DeVitt, so I think what's important to remember is that we still have detailed design to work through, right? So this is only step one of the process. The level of preliminary design that's been done at this point was really to substantiate that this was feasible as far as the development goes. So in regards to the stormwater concern or the use of infiltration, the consultant MTE has looked at this at a not, I shouldn't say a high level, but at a preliminary level and substantiated that they believe it's feasible to use that method of infiltration. We know there are some hurdles to overcome, including concerns with the downstream lands. But they will be required to do on-site testing of the infiltration capacity of the soils. We would have them do it on-site as opposed to just theoretical to ensure, you know, the intent is to ensure the long-term viability of it. But similar to what's being proposed with the sanitary system, although they'll have private septics, but there is the intent to put in a what would effectively become a private sanitary sewer system, gravity fed, that would feed into lands to the south if and at some point they do develop. The stormwater could be dealt with in a similar fashion, that stormwater facility would stay in place until such time that there is a surface water outlet that gets created through further development to the south. So the concerns, so those would be a short-lived or temporary concerns until future development does happen. As far as the elevated groundwater concerns, initially or after design with the agricultural lands, we do have a requirement for monitoring of groundwater levels in the drought plan conditions that we get carried over into the site plan agreement. Certainly the concern of high groundwater impacts is there, but that's something that would be reviewed through the detailed design. I think some of the other concerns are probably in respect to existing private wells and the impacts of the individual septic systems that would be part of the 15 units. So again, similarly, MTE carried out a sanitary or sewage analysis study that would have addressed that, and that would be refined through the detailed design as well, to show that the nitrate levels are met within the boundaries of the site, so that there should be no impact to the existing wells. And then as far as water supply, this development would be on municipal water, so there would be no impact to supply to the existing wells. If there's anything that I missed, Councillor Scott, just please feel free to point it out.
Go ahead.
Thank you, through Madam Mayor. Thank you, Rob. No, I think you've addressed it, and I know it is early stages, but I just want to make sure that we've got time to address all those concerns, because like I said, I'm certainly in favor of seeing some growth going on there. just want to make sure that we can address them as we go along still. And I know it's a long process to go through. So thank you for that.
Okay, is there anything else? All right. In that case, then we have a motion before us that the County of Middlesex be advised that Middlesex Centre recommends draft plan approval for the land known legally as Concession 1, Part Lot 6 in the former Township of Delaware, Middlesex Centre, County File 39T, MCCDM 2002, subject to the draft plan conditions appended to the Middlesex Centre plan report and subject to a 3-year lapse period. And that council directs staff to prepare a zoning bylaw amendment subject to the Planning Act requirements to place a holding symbol H2 on the lands legally described as Concession 1 Part Lot 6, in which the precondition for the removal of the holding symbol shall be a site plan agreement entered into with the municipality. Is there a mover and a seconder? Councillor Scott and Councillor Heffernan. Yeah, all in favor? And that is carried. Okay, thank you for that report, Marion. And now we have Dan again for a consent application at 13193 12 Mile Road.
Through the chair, thank you, Madam Mayor and members of council. The purpose and effect of this consent application, which is B19/2021, is to sever a parcel of land for lot addition purposes, having an area of approximately 1.65 acres to be merged with an abutting lot known municipally as 13273 12 Mile Road. The lot addition would add to an existing lot with an area of approximately 80.55 acres, making the combined lot area approximately 82.2 acres. The lands receiving the lot addition do contain a single detached dwelling and an associated accessory building, as well as agricultural land that is in crop production. They are privately serviced and do maintain their own access. The land to be retained would be approximately 34 acres and contains agricultural land as well as a single detached dwelling. The land is designated agricultural area in Middlesex County's official plan, agricultural in Middlesex Center's official plan, and zone agricultural A2 zone in Middlesex Center's comprehensive zoning bylaw. So everyone can see. As noted in the purpose and effect, the applicant is requesting a minor boundary adjustment to remove an existing jog in the property boundaries, shown here as the yellow area on the map, which would basically provide more lands to the neighboring farm parcel to normalize their existing farm operation and boundaries. So as noted in the planner's report, the proposal is consistent with the provincial policy statement and does meet the general intent of both the county official plan as well as the local official plan, as the minor boundary adjustment is for technical reasons. Additionally, there's no net loss to agricultural lands as a result of the adjustment. And also as a note, the application proposes to alter the lot area size on both subject parcel lands, which will essentially no longer make them existing lots of record. So as a minor variance application, or as a condition, a minor variance application will be required in order to recognize the undersized nature of both these agricultural parcels of land. And any concerns raised during the circulation of the application have been addressed and included as conditions of consent. So given the above, planning staff recommend that consent application B19/2021 be approved, subject to the conditions that are outlined in the planning report. So thank you, and I'm certainly available to answer any questions that council.
Okay, thank you for that report, Dan. I'm going to look to council for questions. Just before you ask, I can assure you that the owner is available for questions if there are any of them. So Alison Dell is available. Would anyone like to ask anything about the application? Councillors, Cates, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Dan. Just to clarify, I had a hard time figuring out this one here, what the plan is. So when we look at the picture with the yellow box around it, so basically the yellow outline area will just go to that farm So the red line will be straight through. It's just an adjustment to correct.
Through the chair to Councillor Cates. Yep, that's exactly correct. So it'll just amend the boundary so that it will be included as part of the larger farm.
So there's no house or anything on it. It's just to fix it up.
To the chair, yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? I don't see any hands. So we have a motion before us that consent application B19 2021 filed by Matthew and Allison Dale in order to sever and convey as a lot addition a 1.65 acre parcel of land from 13193 12 Mile Road to an existing property known municipally as 13273 12 Mile Road from a property legally described as part lots 25 and 6 concession 11 in the county of Middlesex, municipality of Middlesex Center, be granted. There are 8 conditions here, which are detailing various aspects of the application that need to be observed. I'm not going to read through all of those. I'll note further that the reasons for approving the consent application include the fact that the proposal is consistent with the provincial policy statement. It conforms to the County of Middlesex official plan and the Middlesex Centre official plan, and subject to the conditions, the proposal would comply with the Middlesex Centre comprehensive zoning bylaw. Is there a mover and a seconder? Councillor Shipley and Councillor Heffernan, all in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Moving to item number 10.3, applications for a zoning bylaw amendment. Oh, Marion. Okay, thank you. And the floor is yours, Marion, if you'd like to present the report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you to Council. I'm going to share my screen very quickly. Okay, so the municipality received a zoning bylaw amendment application for temporary use for the lands known as 9978 Gracehead Drive. The purpose of this report is to make a recommendation on the requested rezoning for a temporary use, and this is to permit the construction of a new single detached dwelling while living in the existing single detached dwelling. The temporary use would only apply for a period of up to 3 years, and upon expiration or completion of the new dwelling, the existing residence would need to be removed. The lands are located on the north corner of Poplar Hill Road and Gracehead Drive. The subject lands are approximately 5.2 acres in area and contain a single detached dwelling, a storage shed, and workshop. The property has private services and is surrounded by agricultural lands. So the requested application is generally consistent with the PPS County official plan and the Middlesex Centre official plan as it relates to permitting a single family dwelling on agricultural lands. The application was circulated to area residents, agencies, and staff. To date, we have not received any correspondence from area residents at the time of meeting this report or at the leading up to this public meeting. The chief building official has no concerns with the application, and Public Works and Engineering have requested that the applicant submit a deposit of $10,000 and enter into an agreement with the municipality to ensure the removal of the existing residence promptly once the occupancy is provided to the new residents. As such, planning staff determined that the requested zoning bylaw amendment for a temporary use for a period of up to 3 years is consistent with all applicable policies, including the Middlesex Centre official plan. As such, staff recommend that the application be approved and that the owner enter into a temporary use agreement with the municipality and require removal of the existing dwelling and submit a deposit of $10,000 for the submit a deposit of $10,000 to the municipality to ensure the removal. I'll be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Okay, thank you for that presentation, Marion. I'll look to council if there are any questions on this, and I don't see any. So we do have a motion before us that the zoning bylaw amendment application for a temporary use zone filed by H. Timothy Dorvaliers and Suzanne Johnson to permit 2 single detached dwellings on one property for a period of up to 3 years to allow a new residence to be constructed on the land be approved. And further, that the owner be required to enter into a temporary use agreement with the municipality and submit a deposit of $10,000 to ensure the removal of the existing residence. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Arts and Councillor Heffernan, all in favor? And that carries. Thank you. Okay, and now if I could have a motion to rise from public meetings. It is that council rise from public meetings, reconvene at the regular meeting of the council at 8:26. Councillor Scott and Deputy Mayor Brennan, all in favor? Thank you, and that is carried. All right, we have one item for correspondence. Is there any comment or question? No. All right, then we need a mover that the correspondence item number 11.1 be received for information. Councillor Heffernan and Councillor Scott, all in favor? Thank you, that's carried. And I'll look to the Deputy Mayor, please, to present a report on County Council.
Thank you. Our last meeting was September the 14th. We started at 10 o'clock in the morning with a visioning session on road safety from Intact Public Entities, which is the former Frank Cowan company. The main reason they're saying for accidents are failure to stop and distraction are the two major reasons why we have collisions on the roads. Some of the things they're looking at are illuminated signs, if they make a difference or not. They're saying that lower speed limits simply result in higher speeds over the limit. They're looking at perhaps safety cameras and signage within the municipalities. One interesting fact they did present that if a pedestrian is hit at 30 kilometers an hour, 1 out of 10 will not survive. If it's at 50 kilometers, 5 out of 10 will not survive. And if it's 70 kilometers over, 1 out of 10 will survive. So the higher the speed limits, usually result in more serious consequences. The county is developing a modernization program of development tracking solutions. It's going to cost $85,000 to set up with a $25,000 renewal each year with unlimited use for cloud permits and modernization projects. A couple of quotes for trucks were received. KPMG auditors for the county had a report discussing the county's books with no issues on the county books. I think we reported a while ago that the county had a surplus of $2,686,000, of which $545,000 was from the library, and that money was transferred to the tax stabilization reserve for future consideration to keep taxes down. Stratford Lodge is renewing the staff educator position with a 1.7% increase for next year. And at the lodge, the waiting list currently consists of 159 people, 73 people waiting for a private room, and the others just non-private rooms. And the previous month it was 155, so it stays in around the same from month to month. November 27th will be the warden's banquet this year for the outgoing warden from Lucan. So if anybody's interested in that, keep that in mind. Please help. Thank you.
Thanks for the update. And is there any other business from any member of council? I don't see any hands, so we can move to bylaws. The motion before us is that bylaws 2021, number 89 through bylaw 2021-092 be adopted as recommended. Is there a mover and a seconder? Councillor Scott and Councillor Cates, all in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. And now a motion to adjourn. The Council Municipal Middlesex Centre adjourns September 22nd, 2021 council meeting at 8:30 p.m. Deputy Mayor Brennan and Councillor Shipley, all in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much.